So yeah, I'm just gonna kind of stick some periwinkle purple into the neck right here where I seen a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of purple in there. So I'm gonna bump that up and go ahead and get that in there. And that's why I have my shapes. That's why I stencil the way I do. A lot of people tell me it's like color by number, which it kind of is. It makes it a little bit more simple. But the less time I have to think about, shape and things like that, the more time I have to think about, exactly what color it is and where it's going. So that way I don't have to have too much in my mind. I can pay attention to less and kind of refine it a little bit more. So using some dark red and fading that off of that end. That's why I use the back and forth motion, because it kind of helps me on those parts where it's a little dark on fades off on both sides. I used to go straight across in the middle, and sometimes each side wouldn't fade off enough for me. So this has really helped me. Just kind of getting that neck, still going to the red. Looks like I'm gonna use some dark brown, dark red mixed again. I'll be using that a lot in this piece. A lot of that color's in there. Kind of cleaning up that edge on the back. Yeah, so just being patient with these pieces makes a world of difference. You don't really want to rush through a piece like this. If your max time for sitting on a tattoo and you're over it in like 4 hours, then break it up in sessions. Just take time to get through it. You don't want to just knock something out as fast as you can and then be unhappy with it in the end. You want to take your time with it. So if it takes you 2 sessions to do it, it's fine. Just blocking the shapes. I usually do it all with color. I'll use line work sometimes in certain areas, like, you'll see in a little while, around lips, things like that. I'm still using the 17, and the 15 mag. I'm using that. I use that most of the time for the big gradations of color. Helps me out, lets me go a little bit faster through it. Actually, the needle I'm using is a curved mag. It's a curved front. I like it a lot. It helps the colors fade from one to another also. But these needles are very hard to get. Like, I have to make them individually myself. I make all the needles. So it's a little bit extra time, but it's worth it to me to make the needles. I can't get a needle or I haven't yet to find a needle that's pre-made that they make like this with the same type of needle. It's a long taper bug pen, so. Just getting this jaw in there. I'm using like a dark brown purple to get the dark in the jaw, some red in there. Just really paying attention to making sure I'm looking back at my reference a lot, making sure that I'm really trying to follow what it's telling me and understanding what colors, not really looking at the whole thing, just looking at where I'm working and really paying attention to the darks and lights and the colors, and not looking at the whole thing and getting, like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on, or it's a face. Just kind of looking at shapes and color, and the value of it. You don't want to get ahead of yourself and get overwhelmed. You just want to work in the area you're at, and, make sure you're paying attention to that and not getting confused. So right here, I'm blocking in some hair with some black and purple again. And I use a lot of that, a lot of the blacks first, and get those shapes in there and then kind of eyeball the rest. But if your stencils real well, sometimes it stays there and helps you out, and you can get the shapes even better, and it's good, and just say I'm doing this and I'm doing the hair and I'm getting, confused, and I make a strand in the wrong area. Like, I don't stress out, you don't want to stress out. It doesn't need to be completely perfect, it's just, using it as a guide, and it's better, the closer it is, the better, but you want to make it close enough. You don't want to stress out. You also want to have fun while you're doing these pieces, and the more you get stressed, the less fun it's going to be, and the more difficult you're going to give yourself. Just relax and have fun with it. If you need to stand up for a second, stand up, put your machine down, take a break. You don't want to just keep frustrating yourself. So everything doesn't need to be perfect. You're just kind of trying to make as close as you can. So yeah, so I'm just fading it off. I went from black to purple and looks like to red, and that underneath the ear right there by the hair. Using more of a crimson red now. That's what I kind of see in there. It's looks like it's gonna go to a little tangerine, more like bright red right there. So yeah, so I'll use like intense, some intense colors. I use a lot of eternal colors. Um, if this was a black and gray piece, I'd be using a lot of silverback ink. I really like those pre-made grays. Once in a while, you know, if I'm doing a color piece like this, I'll use a little bit of the pre-made silverbacks in there, depending if I need to, you know, stain a color or do something like that. But usually I pretty much stick to full color when I'm doing this. Yeah, so now I'm sticking a little bit of dark right there. I left a little gap because it was a little hair strand right there, a little thicker one. So I'll go underneath that shape, making sure I pay attention to where the light source is coming from, and you know, going underneath that shape and doing some darks. I'll kind of work around my stencil. That way I have a little bit of gap in the skin. You know, sometimes if I'm not ready to put it there, it works real well for me. So yeah, I'm using about probably a brown, black, maybe some plum. I tend to mix a lot of color sometimes just looking. Right now it looks like I'm using a 5 round. And this is a pre-made 5 round. I used to use a lot of 3s, but for some reason now I run my machines, like even with the coil machine, you know, these machines right here, the pneumatics, run really, really low. So a 5 round, you know, makes like a 3 line, really, really clean and consistent if you set it up right. The same, I don't use liner machines really anymore. I use a lot of shading machines, real soft hit. I actually have a shading machine. It's a shader. It's a, what is it? A bloodhound machine, and it runs really, really super soft. It barely pushes a mag, but it's just enough to push a 5. It really lets me build my lines up instead of having to make one line completely solid right away. So right here you're looking at me, I'm doing some dark red and purple over what I tattooed already. That machine's running so light that like it's not really doing any damage to the skin right there. I know it looks like I keep going over and over, but I seen this tattoo healed. It took about 2 weeks, but it healed really flawless. It still looks the same. It's been one pass. The guy heals really well. So yeah, I'm running my machines really light, just letting it get enough in there. And but yeah, it's just as solid. Nothing's lost. So yeah, I'm just cleaning it off right here. I'm using some soap and water mixed and just kind of cleaning that up. Putting a little bit of ointment down. Actually, looks like he's taking a little break. He should be coming to sit back down right away. He's in a little bit of pain. So yeah, it's just right here. It's me coming back right here, and I put a little bit of a line work on the side of the face sometimes to crispen up areas where I want it to be a little bit sharper. I'll use a color a little bit lighter than what, just say there's black, you know, like there's definitely black right next to that face. I'll use a dark brown. For something like this, maybe a dark red with purple or blue into it. That way it isn't black, and that way the line's just not this crazy line when it heals if the black isn't as solid as the line. So that way the line heals up a little bit lighter, and it kind of, it isn't such a definite line there. So I'm just blocking in this hair, making sure I'm paying attention to the shapes and where the direction the hair is going. You know, I'll bring my mag sideways. That way I can kind of follow the shape of the hair and the way it's flowing out. This is black and purple mixed. Same thing, looks like purple and dark red right there as it comes out a little bit further and gets more into the light. I figured, you know, you guys would want to see something with a lot of reds, a lot of things like that, a lot of warmth to it. A lot of times I have a lot of trouble with that, so I kind of wanted to see how it'd be done, and you know, it's hard to create that warmth sometimes. So I'm cleaning it off, making sure not to wipe over my stencil too much to wipe it off. And still using some dark red and dark brown. So really paying attention, looking at my reference a lot, making sure I'm making the right choices on the color and the value. One thing, a little trick to do, if you're doing these color portraits and you're not sure if your value's right, and is once you're done, just say you get finished with it, take it into Photoshop and desaturate the picture and make it black and white after you did, the tattoo you did, and see if it still holds up shape. If it still holds up shape, then yeah, you're putting enough value. But if it falls flat, it's because you're not using enough value in the piece. So then next time, print out the same tattoo you did in black and white, and kind of draw above it with a pencil and get the reference and kind of see where you need to go darker. And that'll help your pieces hold up, and look more 3D. You're getting your full values in there. So right here I'm using a little bit of tangerine. It's a really good color. It's coming off the red. It's just really paying attention to the shapes right there. You can see how the lip is, and even though there's no stencil there, this is where drawing comes in. That's one thing I hate is on some inks, they get a little bit hard, so I'll have to like take the hard little shell off. Sometimes what I do, if it gets too hard, or if I don't want it to do that, I'll put one drop of water on top of it, just to kind of keep it from hardening. So right here I'm using tangerine, and it looks like Georgia peach, and I'm kind of just coming off of that red and tangerine I just did and following the shape. I really like these colors. It creates a nice little flesh color. I use it a lot. So I'm just coming off with that Georgia peach and tangerine color. This looks like a little bit more Georgia peach than tangerine now. I'll dip half and half, and then just dip fully into the Georgia peach. This looks like a little bit of pink with the red, on the edge, getting a little bit lighter so that way that shape holds up on the edge. Rinsing my machine out in between. There's some gray there. I'll mix a lot of blue. I don't really like to use black and like gray colors straight. I like to mix other colors into them. Gives them a little difference of a richness, not just black and white. Gives a little bit of life to the grays. So I mixed a little bit of blue. Right now I'm doing I did a little bit of, looked like periwinkle and maybe like a red. And just kind of sketching in that I don't know what color. Yeah, it looks, or blue and periwinkle it looked like. So it looks like a little bit of light magenta and blue to create a little bit of like a grayish purple. And just kind of following that shape where that makeup's coming down. And making sure I'm getting lighter where it needs to get lighter. Just having fun with it, not trying to be too perfect and too precise. Just trying to get the gist of what I see, and, rinsing my machine out. So yeah, the palette gets a little bit crazy, but I like it when it starts to get dirty. So I see a little bit of red there. I'll punch it up a little bit more, like off those grays, just to enhance it and have a little bit of fun with it. I'm not trying to look for exactly perfect. I mean, it would take forever if I wanted to get perfect. You do layers and kind of get it like that. I just want close enough value and a close enough color choice. Just kind of give the feeling of the picture. Right here I'm using a little bit of dark red. Kind of getting those shapes in there. You want to pay attention. That's not such. It's a little bit of a warmer area. It's hotter, so you're using those reds right there, and I'm using that tangerine and light red mixed. You don't want to go over too far. As you can see by the nose, if you look at the reference, it starts to get a little bit cooler in that shadowed area. Even though there's another hot spot with the light, it's still cooler than where the red's hitting. So I'm using that 5 round again. I'm using dark brown, outline the bottom of the lip. I like to outline it because it holds shape up over time. I'll use a lot of color line, help it hold up and look cleaner. I used to use my mag and just kind of drag it on the side, but I've noticed over time it kind of spreads out, doesn't hold up the same. You stick a couple color lines in there in the sharper areas, and it really makes it a lot cleaner looking. Personally, I think the tattoo will hold up over time a little bit better just because it has those edges and it's so sharp. So I'm using a 5 round, still pre-made. The tube I'm using right now is also a next generation tube. I really like them. They got nice tips. I'm using a round tip. I used to use diamond tips, but I tend to like these round tips. So you can see me. I'm using looks like magenta and purple mixed. Now it looks like a crimson red and light red mixed. Just kind of outlining those lips, making them sharp. Make sure I'm paying attention. I mean, your stencil is important, but you also want to pay attention to the picture. And, you know, if the stencil's a little off, you're going to have to draw that shape in. So making sure the lips are the right shape and things like that. You know, you just don't want to just completely trust your stencil. It's there for guideline, and then you just kind of draw into it. It's there to help you. But everything isn't always perfect. You just kind of want to look at it, eyeball it. Use the reference a lot. That's what it's there for. You know, you really want to pay attention to what's going on there. You know, sometimes things that used to help me before when I was first starting to do these, you buy a pack of Prismacolors and, you know, make a stencil, you know, with like a purple Prismacolor on a piece of paper and, draw on it with the colors, match the colors, try to match it the night before you're going to start a piece like this. That way you can at least see, you know, if you can do it. Because if you can't do it on paper, you're not going to be able to do it on the skin. And that's kind of where you need to start, is the drawing part. Yeah, so just try to mix your colors with the Prismacolors and, you know, draw a color portrait on paper before you try to attempt it on someone's skin. It's really gonna help you a lot, and your color combinations you're gonna remember, and you know, it's gonna make it turn out a better piece. You know, even if you're dealing with a black and white portrait, you know, the night before you do it, and if it's your first ones, you know, take the time, you know, 2-3 hours, you know, and kind of just go ahead and rough in some values with, you know, your pencils and try to draw that portrait. You know, that'll give you an idea of what you need to work with, and then you give you an idea if you're even able to do it or if you're ready. So right here I went from you know, the tangerine and Georgia peach mixed into and those are eternal colors, and then I use for the lighter colors I use intense, and that's a flesh pot that I'm going into, and then into a flesh, and then into white usually. So right here I'm using a little bit of red, a little bit of water, and kind of fading it off black and grayish, you know, like just kind of using that little bit of fade off. It looks like a little bit of tangerine and pink. So yeah, it looks like light magenta, tangerine, and maybe Georgia peach into that pinkish area. Just following shapes, making sure I see where that upper lip, like cheek area is. Ended. So it looks like light magenta and flesh in there, kind of getting that pinkish color. I'll use a lot of flesh, you know, to get things lighter. Sometimes I won't use as much white. If I use the flesh color, it tends to keep things a little bit, it lets things get lighter, but it doesn't let it get like the way white makes colors. So that way when I use my white highlights, it tends to keep my white highlights pretty true to white, you know. I think it gives it a different life. So just getting those shapes in there, going over the lip right here. A little bit of flesh pot. I like this color. It's really pinky. It's like kind of peachy color. It's a really good color. And it's such a good transition from like Georgia peach to that, and then that into the regular flesh color.